I really want to make something.
Oh, do you know what you want to make?
Sometimes, but not all the time.
Do you know what you want to use?
I feel like I want to make something all the time, and sometimes I feel like I know where it can go.
Okay.
And sometimes I have no idea where it belongs.
I feel you.
Or even what it's going to be.
Oh, so you want to make something sometimes and you don't know what the end product is going to be or what it will be.
Yeah, I have experiences of both. Like sometimes I know exactly what it is, and it's just a matter of like a trip, just getting there. Or sometimes it's like I don't even know where it is on the map I'm going, but I want to go.
Okay.
I want to make.
I like that.
I want to do.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I mean, there's something kind of cool about not necessarily knowing the final destination of it, but that you want to go on that journey. I like that.
There's a value exploring in that way.
Yeah.
But I guess ultimately it's the feeling of I want something that isn't there yet to be there because I did it.
I like that. I like that. So what would you call that?
I'm searching for a word. Creativity.
I like it. I like it. Let's make a stamp. Boom. And we'll just hit things with creativity.
We're going to make tons of money off that word now that we own
That's
it.
Right.
Yeah. But ultimately, that in its most basic definition, that's what it is. We in our culture we tend to apply that to artistic expression, but that's really only scratches the surface.
Mm-hmm. Well then,
so
you know what we should do then?
No idea what.
Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Heart of the Cards, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt.
Hey, this is Dan Green.
And Eric Stuart.
And this is episode 32 of The Heart of the Cards, believe it or not. So, creativity, bringing something into being from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We do that in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And we often think about it as a form of creative expression, but we want to also think about it in a bigger way, in that I think can also be helpful and, dare I say, empowering when you really take a look at what you're creating for yourself in your life and how you go about doing that and the things that you do or don't do. So I'm going to start with talking about an artsy-fartsy example, and I say that with great love.
Yes, you do.
Artsy-fartsy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I'll contribute something else.
Okay, great.
All right.
I'm interested.
You want me to start, or do you want to?
No, you should start. I want to hear all about the artsy-fartsy stuff.
Well, you already know part of this one.
Okay.
So I'm working on a visual for Crossing the Gods, and so I'm using video to express an idea that I wrote down and that was beautifully acted by Erica Schroeder. And when I thought of the line, instantly I knew what it meant and even had an image. But actually making that happen on video with the tools that I have, and I'm not blaming the tools. They're only limited by my mastery over them. But I've been banging my head against the wall with this concept of what is it visually to create, and here's the line, a labyrinth of stars. Now, that's not a spoiler for anybody for Crossing the Gods.
No.
Merely an enticement. But so I showed you one of my iterations, my more recent iterations the other day. I texted it to you.
Yes.
And your feedback was, as usual, spot on.
I'm sorry if it added to the agita that goes along with the creativity, though.
I appreciate that you don't want me to feel anything negative, and it was exactly right. And your response, so I'm trying to create this labyrinth of stars, and I tried other things where you're seeing like walls that look like stars, which mostly look like big black walls with white spots on them, right? A field of, like we would normally imagine a star field. And then I worked with the idea that, well, a star is, a big burning ball of gas. So I made a big burning ball of gas visually, and then I stacked it and made it geometric, like it was a tunnel of some sort. And there are rows of them, right? So the labyrinth of stars was all about the stars and nothing about the space in between.
Right.
And that's what you saw as a hallway of cotton balls.
Yeah.
And one of my children said the exact same thing. Oh, that's so cool! It's like cotton balls. I'm like, no, it's a labyrinth of stars. Don't you see?
Have you been talking to Uncle Eric?
I know you saw him last weekend, but I hadn't shown him this yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think also explaining the first iteration of what you had.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, not to sidetrack your storytelling, but
please.
when you
Anytime.
first showed that to me in the original idea, it reminded me of running through the labyrinth in The Shining of the bushes. That's sort of
I like that association.
That's what I felt the fear and the motion of it, and running into a dead end and having to turn and
that's the moment that the character's having. So that's a good.
And that's what I was feeling. And I know maybe you wanted to change that because yes, a lot of the tweaks that you've been making on the stuff I think are for the better. But I do have to say your gut instinct in the original idea made a lot of sense. I don't think anyone seeing that would have questioned what it was. I mean, maybe it was a little bit too much on the nose.
Right. Of course, you run into that risk when you want to be clear.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue.
Oh, well, no, that's really good context, and I appreciate that because I spent the last several hours of consciousness the other day going right back to square one and understanding, okay, this is why this choice makes sense. Can I execute this choice better?
Right.
Which is really what I'm doing, redoing a lot of the stuff, right? The idea was right, but my execution is more capable now, right? Would you say that's a fair?
Yeah, because I think you've, as you were talking about earlier, the mastering the tools, like knowing what tools are in that toolbox. I think you are finding all of that stuff, and so the way that you're sort of like fine tuning this stuff, you're still using your original gut instinct.
And this is so rewarding to me. This is so fun for me to do. I get to use all aspects of what I like to think about. I'm the kind of guy who I'm re-editing parts of the last Indiana Jones movie for fun. Right? So there's an editing part of my brain that gets into the pacing of it.
Yeah.
Too. Anyway, so it's a struggle, and I guess what I'm learning from this struggle of creativity is to listen to the parts of yourself that want to explore things to make them better, but also understand where you were coming from, give yourself credit for what was working about it, even though maybe that in and of itself could be improved in some way. But I've spent weeks on this, and this is maybe 30 seconds in one episode.
Yes, but an important part of the story.
Absolutely.
And many of the things that you've done in this story are the quality over quantity. You have whittled it down so that when you do choose a scene, it's important. There is no filler in Crossing the Gods. So
that was a big goal for me writing the script.
Right. So the fact that you've been banging your head against the wall because of this, it doesn't surprise me because if it's in there, it needs to be good, right?
Right. Or at least not suck.
Well, there's that. Yes. We loved it. It didn't suck.
Sometimes the best you can do is not suck, unfortunately. And those are never wonderful feelings. But, sometimes it's because of where you're at, and sometimes it's, like the circumstance,
So what made you step back to the original? Was it the feedback, or was it you already probably felt that, right? You already
I wasn't ever fully satisfied. Even though I understood choices I made, I wasn't ever fully satisfied.
Right.
And you just made a comment about the concentration, the brevity of the script, like it's gonna be there because it matters.
Right.
And I was definitely writing stuff from the standpoint of I don't want to waste a word.
Right.
I like stories where everything counts, right? And even if it's a short story, it feels like a longer story because there's more to it.
Right.
Because more moments matter, right? The ratio of moments that matter is better. So anyway, and I realized that I was making this elaborate, visualization for. I mean, I really have so little time to even show, an elaboration of the original idea. But I was never fully satisfied, and you thought of The Shining, you said, which is great. I also wanted to feel like, because I have Indiana Jones in my brain, which really, when don't I? But the first movie, Raiders, which is Raiders of the Lost Ark, not Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Let's just dispense with that idea. Yeah. Just like Star Wars, it's not A New Hope, it's Star Wars.
Yes.
Anyway, but the end of Raiders, spoilers, where the Ark is opened, there's both a sense of beauty and terror.
Yes.
That's what I want.
Right.
So,
which is kind of why I was leaning towards The Shining. I mean, I felt
got spooky.
That. Yeah, you did.
I got some spooky.
You did, and so my question really is: so you come up with original concept, which is more of the of running through the labyrinth, but you're not 100% happy with it. You change the vibe completely. I mean, even for those of you who have not seen this, and you will see it at some point, I mean, think of going from very dark, and that was a comment that I made, which was it went from the darkness with the highlights of stars to the brightness and the cloudiness, which it sort of made it a lighter sort of palette. So you went all the way the other side, and then you asked me my opinion. The kids obviously gave you their opinion, which is great. And now you're sort of leaning back towards your original gut instinct of what to do, but maybe treat it in a different way. Was the choice to go back something that you were already ready to make? You weren't convinced that your change was the way to go. You did it because you needed to experiment with that and see if it made sense. And maybe if you got feedback that was, this is really great, I love the change, you'd be like, okay, good, this does make sense. Or were you sort of testing the waters, and I don't even know if it's a conscious decision or not, that you were always ready to go back to it. You needed to step away from it and go completely the other way to then go, maybe what I was doing originally was the right approach. It just was not done in the way that I loved.
That's a great question. And I think I was willing to go back. I knew the choices I made sense for the reasons I made them. It told the story, even though I might have wanted something more from it.
Right.
It was a clear communication. So I think that's the very least you can expect from your storytelling.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And so also, I didn't just automatically go to step before. I tried another thing too, where I used imagery of labyrinths and stars.
Oh.
So I'm putting the ideas together.
Right.
And this is a subjective experience of somebody entering somebody else's mind, which is also not a huge spoiler. So we're dealing with a lot of range here in terms of how he can represent things visually. And what I was coming up with reminded me of like the opening of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And which I was like, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But that's not right for this moment, And anyway, so but now I understand what I disliked better about what I had done before. So I'm able to use more of the skills that I have learned to do a better job of it. Getting back to what we were saying before about having some capability over the tools you're using. So I think I can get a better result, even if I use the same basic concepts.
Right.
So I'll be at least that much happier, which matters.
Yeah. So another question I have, because this definitely resonates with me. So
yeah, well, you were talking about how struggling with that song.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like, so trusting your initial instinct, especially with the inspiration leading to the creativity, right? There's so many times you do like a rough sketch of something, or you jot down something quickly as even just a great sentence that could be like a line of poetry, whatever. But the more time you spend looking at it and listening and reading and whatever, you might have a different take on it on a Wednesday than you did on a Monday. And that's not that's not to say that Monday's idea wasn't great and that Wednesday's is better. It's just a different day, a different moment. Other things in the world are affecting you. So it's very hard to accept what we sometimes call the rough draft.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that throughout musical history, there are times where the demo recording of a song could not be outdone. And that became the one that they released.
Yep.
Not that the other versions weren't better musically but recorded better or, they figured out we made a couple of mistakes in there. We should really fix. No, there was something magical about that initial thing. So, with the fact that you have the ability because of what you use to draw and the technology that's there to be able to tweak and go back and remove layers and go back to whatever that was. It's the same thing with music. It's like, it's very hard to just say, no, there's something really great about that initial moment where that, pen came to paper. So, so I think that that's another part of what's going on with this moment in the show is that the initial thing was right in many, many ways because it's what your first instinct was. And maybe you looked at it and, on a different day and had a different idea, which would have been valid if that was the first thing you did in the first place, right?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just an interesting test of one's ability to say that, no pun intended, that the paint is dry. But like what do you use as a way to say, no, this is what I want it to be. I'm good with this. I can move on. I mean, you are hand drawing this show. You are working frame by frame, and you can easily rewind and go back. Every time you step forward, you can go back and I'm gonna look at that again. What is it that you use as a creative person that says, no, I'm good with this. I'm good with this part of it. The first 30 seconds are great. I'm working on the next 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a call we all have to make. And for this particular part of the project, it's making sure that the visuals make sense and meet a certain standard of execution so that at the very least, if it looks amateur, it looks like a skilled amateur.
You're too hard on yourself. You really are. It really looks fantastic. I just have to say.
Well, I appreciate that. But also just the heart of it is the storytelling. So I want it to look as great as possible, but we've seen how awry George Lucas has gone, revisiting some of his stuff when he should have just, left well enough alone. I remember this conversation I had with a director of photography. It was the first independent movie I ever did. I guess it was technically the second one. But anyway, we were having a beer off hours at a bar. He was a great director of photography, been at it for 20 years or so, right?
Okay.
And I was talking about my interest in shooting stuff as well, and had some movie ideas, but didn't have the right camera. And he said, man, if the story's good and the performances are good, it doesn't matter how it's shot. And this is coming from a director of photography.
Right.
So I also trust that there's something, the story is the thing, right?
Yes.
Shakespeare did a wonderful job telling some stories in a theater that wasn't, what we would consider state of the art.
Right.
But I bet that if we were to go there right now, it would still be compelling to watch.
Yeah. Well, your drawings and your illustrations are very solid. They are part of the sum of all parts, right? They are
right. They are not the end point themselves.
No, they are important. But they are
right.
They are not. It's not like you're just showing visual art. So
no.
So yeah, I mean it's an interesting dance to be able to you've got your audio, you've got your story, you've got the actual content, and you've got the visuals that are supporting it in very very specific minimalistic, and I don't mean that in terms of the art. I mean that in terms of the choices. That was really for the audience, so that I was telling them that. The listeners, not you.
You knew I knew it.
Yes. But it's very hard because you're talking about three very important things, none of which are more important than the others.
Yeah, balance, man. That's so key in so many things. And well, anyway, I'm sure I will figure out the right balance with this eventually.
Yes, you will.
And more important, I won't let it derail the telling of the whole story.
Well, thank goodness.
Well, that's my contribution to the idea today. What do you have to say about creativity, my friend?
Well, the fact that you talked about some of the frustrating parts about it, I am at a true crossroads in the next way I tell my story. I am feeling very, it's not that I'm confused. I have so many ideas that I want to put together, and yet there are so many of them all at once that I'm trying to decide the best format for doing that. And what I mean is, so beyond doing the production company stuff that you and I are doing, which of course has multi things that are going on, which is great, right? That's great. And we seem to be able to coordinate all of those, even if we are, if someone were to stand over our shoulder, they would think that we were sort of a little scattered. We're not. We are trying to juggle life and also be creative together. So that's great, right? But
it's an organic flow. It's not a machine.
Right. For me, I'm at a place now where for the last 2 years, I've been compiling these songs that I want to turn into a new album. I also haven't been playing live that much because due to COVID and all of that, that really just changed my whole life structure of working with the band members.
I remember a conversation early on during the shutdown, and you just sounded so down.
Yeah.
Because of that removal of that from your life.
Yeah. So removing that and removing it for as long as it happened, and I know a lot of my fellow live performers can relate to this, but I tried to make the best of that situation by staying creative, releasing music, continuing to do that, but in that transition into more of the recording side of it, putting this catalog of songs together into an album, whether it's going to be, the final Eric Stuart Band album, we never know what that's going to be, because I might do something different. I don't know. But I really feel like I've created my best work to date, and I'm very excited about that. But I am confused of the way to truly share it. And I want to play live, but I don't want to just go back to playing, a couple of shows here and, the whole struggle of getting an audience to come see it. And I really think that a lot of people became sort of like, well, I guess I don't need live music anymore because we didn't have it for a while, so I'm going to stay home. It's harder to get those audiences out again. And the other side of it is I feel like there's another side of creativity that I wish I knew how to form better, and that's the multimedia side. Well,
let me just make the observation that you're not talking about the artsy-fartsy stuff, as I've been calling it in this conversation. You're really talking about how to create channels for that.
Yeah, but
ways of getting it to. Right.
Well, because we talked about the inspiration and now I have the spark. I have
you already got the fires going. You got stuff to share.
I have stuff to share, but to take that, it's not just recording the music to make it the creative outlet, right? It's the performance of it, or the sharing of it, or the way that I can affect someone by getting them to feel something by hearing that music or seeing the visuals that go along with it. So I am struggling to harness all of these crazy ideas in my brain. I don't need to write the song, record the song, whatever. I need to find a way to share the music, and I don't mean from even a monetary or a social media. How am I just mean how do I want to make this an archival thing that I could, the way that we would listen to an album or a CD or stream something. I would love to do something that was like, if I had the biggest budget or the people that were involved had the time that I would really require of something like this. But like, I would love to do a live performance in front of a multimedia screen that was showing visual.
Oh, yeah.
I want, and I don't mean like a full tour like that. I would just love to have like a couple of key shows that were something of an experience, but then that experience was recorded so that if you couldn't make it to that experience, you could still experience that at home, right? Or I could rewatch it. I want to document it, but I also want to make it a combination of live and visuals and the music.
Right.
And then I think, oh, that's what am I? I'm a crazy person. That's so like that.
Who are you, Taylor Swift?
Right? Yeah, but that, and then it's like, oh, or do I want to press a vinyl record and go old school and do this, make a double record that people could, have as a memento of like Eric Stewart's music, and it's like a, this really cool limited edition thing. And I'm like, I love live performing, but live performances, if they're not recorded, disappear into the ether, and that's what makes them also exciting and spontaneous. But I don't want to watch back all of my live performances. That's not the other side of what I'm looking for. I just feel like I've done so many albums in different ways. I've done so many different kinds of recording projects and shared them in different ways. I feel like I'd almost like to construct more of a audio visual experience for the new record. And I don't know where to start with that, because it's not my thing. Now I have friends, I have professional, acquaintances and people that I could easily go to and say, how shall I do this? But I don't want to start with that. I want to start with, I at least know what I want to do. And then if I can convey what I want to do, I can bring in the people that can tell me how to do it.
Yeah, that's, I think, a very smart, as usual.
But it's frustrating.
Way to approach.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of so much of that stuff.
Is it frustrating because you want to already be doing it, or you want to know what the answer is already? Or?
No, it's frustrating because I talk myself into one idea, and then I talk myself into another idea, and it's not it's not like I'm searching for the art. I'm not searching for the art right now.
Right.
It's like the difference between saying, let's turn this great story into an audiobook. Let's turn this great story into a one-act play.
No, I get you.
And that's where
well, even more, it's like, do I read this book as a physical item, or is it on my Kindle or whatever, some sort of reader? It's like, how is it getting to the audience?
Right.
Right. I mean, how it's packaged and presented is part of the quandary, right?
Well, if it's a great book, do I want to hear a great narrator read it to me? Do I want to read it to myself? Do I want to see it as
better said?
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
That's really what I have. The stories are created. I look at an album as especially with the amount of songs that are on this particular project. It's a film. It could be a film,
a mini series. I was going to say
right. And I feel like that there are no boundaries to where my mind takes this stuff, except for the fact of not knowing necessarily the tools that I could use to do it. But I already see that live stage show in front of that screen, right? And I also see it as, well, is it every song that's a live performance in front of that screen, or is it key moments, or is it like when I've done my storyteller type shows? Is it a small little intro before the clip of that and is the visual even supporting what the song is about, or is the visual its own thing that just happens to work really well against that audio? not being a music video, but just being, a stimulating visual. So I don't know. And because I don't know, I feel like I'm not moving ahead with any of the details because I keep changing my mind.
Okay. I see where you're at. That's aggravating, but all of that ambivalence is going to pay off.
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
You're not getting to the decision yet, and that's what feels like we've accomplished something.
Yeah.
But that decision is backed up. That decision's worthy because it's backed up by really smart what if this, what if that. That's what you're doing now. And even in just, hearing you discuss it, of course, I can't help but have my own ideas.
Of course.
Just even more abstractly, and I can't help but want to contribute my own spin on it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, what if you, group songs by theme?
And I might I might actually bring you into that part of the production idea.
I would delight in
right?
that exploration.
But
I would.
The thing for me is that I really feel like, especially with the fact that so many things are now at our fingertips where we can do that stuff.
Yeah.
Is that I also have to.
So it's such a good time to be creative.
I want to also make sure that what I'm trying to do is I am still the main audience. I want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy not just creating it, but I want to enjoy experiencing it myself. Right? Even if it's a lot of work to put together, when it's all said and done, I want to be able to sit back and say, wow, I want to watch that or I want to listen to that, whatever it is. And not feel the pressure of, am I trying to please the masses?
Right.
And that's also part of this creative journey where, as an artist, I was just having this debate with my parents as I was visiting them this weekend. We were talking about art, and my mother mentioned to me that someone in our family is critiquing, I think, dance online as part of something that she's doing as a profession. And I said, that's great. I said, critique is great. I mean, especially if you're talking about, technical things, both in art and music, and dance, of course. But then again, there are artists and things like that technically are not considered. I mean, Bob Dylan is an amazing songwriter, but not technically an amazing singer. But would he win on American Idol? No.
No.
And yet his resume is far beyond anyone who's ever been on that show. So, and that's not to take away from the people that are incredible singers, right? Technically great singers, but a creative person getting a critique that way, everybody's going to have a different opinion on that stuff. So I'm really in the place now where I really want to be not, oh, that song reminds me of this or this kind. Oh, I can tell what you listen to because of your influences. I can hear it in your music. That's all great because there really isn't anything brand new, right? It's we are exposed to this stuff. We're inspired by this stuff, influenced by this stuff. But in all honesty, I just want to be the best Eric Stuart that I can be. I don't care about the other things you're judging it against. And so I'm really fighting with, because I am at that place now where I'm not chasing after something that is, maybe 20-year-old Eric would be chasing after. I'm chasing after, I want to enjoy what I'm doing and what I'm making. And I'm at that place now for myself. So now I'm searching for, well, what would it be that this Eric would enjoy watching that Eric does?
Well, in terms of being the best Eric Stuart you can be, I think according to the polls, you're in the lead. With just a few contenders.
Thank you.
Just a few contenders. But no, but I love how you also define that relative to your age.
Yeah.
You now as opposed to 20-year-old Eric.
Right.
And one thing I bit my tongue back a few minutes ago on was I get this biopic feeling.
Yeah, totally.
From just this, just the discussion itself.
Sure.
I don't know if that's an angle on, how you might want to look at it. or
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah.
But I think definitely those are the top things you should listen to. Those are the main impulses you should follow.
Yeah, I mean,
that idea of it really has to satisfy you, and there's so many ways. I love the idea. Now I want to stop doing Crossing the Gods. Eric, let's do this catalog of your music. But like what you could do, featuring certain things in one format,
right?
So I mean, all of these different ways of approaching it. And I think of Lindsay,
Yep.
and how her visual talent can help to be a part of some choices that you make. I also like the vinyl idea. Maybe there are different parts of your music that belong in different mediums.
That's smart.
More so.
That's smart.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, see, that's it.
Not that you want your audience to do a fetch quest, but
no, but
go find the CD version.
But all of
that, go find the 8-track.
All of that is valid. I mean, it's really, and look, I mean, the other side of this could be that I can't come up with an idea. I mean, we've talked about some writer's block stuff that I've definitely dealt with. Thank goodness I finished that up all up. But the other side could be that I didn't have this, but now I have it. And I'm about to get the last couple of songs mixed and sent to me. And so my brain is now in format mode. What am I doing?
Right.
And because this has taken me so long to put together, it's like even just my notes of the credits to make sure I know who played on what song and all of these things, and then the correct lyrics, because I'm also thinking like old school. Like if I do put something out, the lyrics are so important to me in everything that I do. I'd like them to be accessible. I'd like you to be able to follow along if you chose to.
Right.
So putting that part of it together, the details of it. And now I love the process. Like I do enjoy having to figure it, make this something. I just, as you were saying in the beginning of our conversation, not necessarily knowing what the end product is going to be, but you want to create something. That's kind of where I am. I don't know what the end product is going to be literally, but I do know that the end product is going to be a way to share this catalog of music, and I don't know if it's going to be audiovisual, audio only, whatever, live, not live. So anyway,
sculpture.
That's what. Yeah, right. And I did a lot of drawing when I was a kid. So
I want to see that.
So there's a lot of I am a visual artist to a degree, but I'm not a video editor. Like I don't deal with that stuff. Like I sat down the other day to start cutting something together just to play around with it, and I was like, this is not something I'm enjoying. Like I can edit audio super fast, and that's what I do. But I'm like, no, the video stuff, that's just not my thing. I know what I like to see.
No, I love that.
Right. So that's why bringing in a team, and for those that are listening who are like, yeah, I do this, but I don't do that, and I do yes. There's nothing wrong with having a vision and then bringing in the people that really know what they're doing to help you get to that point.
Even solo artists in your field.
Yes.
And also others.
Yeah, and bringing
just entirely on their own.
Bringing in video people and people who know that, I have no problem turning over the reins in terms of the technical side of that. I do want to be able to steer the story and say, no, that's not the vibe I'm looking for. But then there's that sort of like almost exciting letting the reins go in terms of, like, if I sent you a song and I didn't tell you what it was about and you just had it playing in the background, and as a visual artist you created images, that would be valid too. Because
I want you to do this, and I want you to send me 2 versions. The first version without lyrics.
I could do that.
And then the second version, the complete.
Right. And even if you listen to some of the lyrics, you still might not know what the song is about. But that's what that sort of
I would love to do
giving a visual artist the freedom to. It's like my thing with music videos. Of course, I've made a couple of music videos, and I enjoy doing that to a degree. But I also think it's taken a lot of the imagination and where you were when you first heard it memories away. There's definitely a period of time where certain songs, I didn't even know what the band looked like. Right, I just know the song,
and
I
was better.
Right, and I knew. Right,
no offense to how the band looks.
As they said, video killed the radio star. And so now you see a music video, and of course during the 80s and the 90s, it's very literal stuff. So that's someone else's storytelling to go along with that video. Well, I don't want that. That's the other thing that I don't want. I don't want to tell the listener exactly how to experience it in terms of the story. And so all of those factors put together as a create.
Well, and that statement you just made is a great example of negative space.
Yeah,
which defines what you do, right? So it's what you don't do is equally important.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where my creativity is at the moment. There's all of these things bubbling up, and I'm like, yeah, this cool. Oh, great. What? And I'm like, and I've got lists of things and ideas and this and that, and I am probably about a month away from having to come up with at least a structure of what my game plan will be in the beginning.
Well, I'm excited. I'm totally into this.
Yeah. No, I am too, and it was nice too. I had a conversation with the guy who mixes and masters all of my songs, a very talented engineer named Larry Alexander, and it's funny. Larry and we rarely talk on the phone when we work on a project. I send him my stuff with like a note or two. He does his mixing, sends it to me, and it's usually one or two little comments, and that's it. And then I get it's usually the second pass, and it's done because we've been working together for so many years. But the other day, we had a little technical problem in uploading something, so he had to actually call me on the phone to make sure that he hadn't made a mistake. And so we had a conversation, and I reiterated that I was going to take this whole catalog of songs that he'd been working on with me for the last 2 years and turning it into a full album. And he says, Eric, I just went back after you mentioned that to me. I went back and I started to listen to the songs that we've been working on for these last 2 years. He goes, this is going to be a great album. And now, of course, he mixed the stuff, so he's, that comment is definitely also patting himself on the back a little. But I was really, it put a big smile on my face because we have been doing this for so long, and we move ahead. And I might listen to what we've been working on or what we did over these last 2 years. But I can't imagine that he's got a playlist of my stuff because he's a busy guy. But the fact that he went back to listen to those and still love them was a nice sort of compliment. I appreciated that from someone.
I would definitely take that to heart, man. I mean, all the other stuff that he's listening to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It made an impact.
Yep.
Not that I'm surprised.
Well, thank you. But anyway, so that's my creative endeavor when it starts. But yes, I'm sure I will pick your brain, my friend.
I look forward to it. There's not much to pick at, but you're welcome to it. Well, I think this is a great place to end our conversation for today.
Yes.
About creativity, part one, as always. And thanks for your contribution, Eric. I think a lot of people can relate to knowing what they want, but not exactly how to do it, if that's a fair simplification.
Yeah, and your story was great too. And I have faith that you will figure out the best way to convey that.
Right after we finish, I'm getting right back to the labyrinth stars boards. But thanks, man. And of course, you'll be seeing my progress or lack thereof, whether you like it or not. And thanks always to our listeners and followers, many of which we get to meet at the conventions that we appear at, which is wonderful. Thank you for all of your comments and the comments that we get online. Please like and subscribe when you get a chance, and it helps us, get the word out. And we look forward to the next time we can have a conversation about creativity, which is what we're talking about today and in the next one, inspiration, which we covered last time, and then we're going to address dealing with what we're dealt, both good and bad. So thanks, and we look forward to the next time.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Cards with Dan Green and Eric Stuart. We hope this conversation in some way spoke to you. Whatever your journey, we look forward to crossing paths again in the next episode. This is Veronica Taylor, and on behalf of Andromeda Productions, we wish you well.
Audromeda, always a sound choice.